What does winning at the game of life mean? What does it mean? There was a little girl sitting with her grandmother having a sandwich. The little girl wanted to know what was inside the sandwich. So she prized open the slices of bread, picked at a piece of cheese, and put it in her mouth. Hoping her grandmother wouldn't notice, she went to do the same again. No, darling, I've already told you before. I want you to have a proper meal. It is a sin to eat cheese without bread. That little girl grew up and happens to be my own mother. Every time she goes to eat a cheese without bread, and she does, she can hear a voice in her head say, "No, darling, it is a sin to eat cheese without bread." And for a split of a second, she feels guilty, even though she knows it's not true. You see, the seed was planted. I'm not saying that, well, before I say it, let me just say this, a bit like an incantation, a wizard's spell. Not saying my great-grandmother was a witch. She was a lovely, kind lady. Yet that is the way she was taught. What are we passing down to the next generation? What is our legacy of invented notions? Our truths, but maybe not the truth. Our model of the world, the good and the bad, the empowering and sometimes the limiting. Where do our beliefs come from? Who placed them there? When did our domestication begin? How do we perceive ourselves? Do we love who we are? Do we believe that we are worthy? Do we sabotage our best intentions? And if we do, why do we do that? Have you ever realized that we don't even get to choose our names? It was not long ago that I discovered that my mother nearly called me Norman. I mean, can you imagine that? Norman Castiel, and not even having a say in it. There was a young man who believed he couldn't express himself in the English language. He believed he couldn't speak in public or in the presence of lawyers. You see, this young man had not passed an exam at the age of 11, a cruel exam. Bright children to the right, not so bright children to the left. We'll mark you for the rest of your life, shall we? Carry the stigma, you little twit. You can be the manual workers. They, on the other hand, they can learn Latin and the sciences and the fine arts. They can be the lawyers, the doctors, and the accountants. They can be the ones that charge the large fees and be able to justify doing so. Julian, time out. Okay, guys. Any lawyers, I don't mean you. Nothing personal, okay? If I didn't play a little, it would get very boring and most of you would walk out. Okay? Come on, please. My own brother Michael is a lawyer. Some of my best friends are lawyers. Fabian, Richard. My own daughter Sarah is going to university in September to study law. It's a bit like the flu epidemic. It's catching. To the left, boy. To the left. Didn't I tell you already? If you want to be successful in life, thou shalt go to school, work hard, get good grades. And you know what you really have to learn is that there is no other way. Guess what? They lied. They lied. I believed them for a while, and then I stopped believing them, and I started believing in myself. Which reminds me, I had an engineer and the head of a construction company outside my house. They were going to build me a garage and a swimming pool. The engineer, wanting to make polite conversation, turned to us and said, "Are you gentlemen going to go to the grammarians' dinner next week?" I said, well, I wouldn't be invited, you see, because I never went to the grammar school. He said, oh, looking back at my beautiful house, he said, oh, so you must have been one of the lucky ones, Kenneth, who must have gone to the UK to study. I said, no, not at all. I went to St. Jacob's School, where the tax office is today. You see, I didn't pass the 11 plus exam. He looked back at my house, very concerned, looked back at me, mortified, as if I'd stolen the property. I had to say to him, no, it's all mine. All 150 years are mine. I can show you the lease. They said to me that I couldn't go to university because I didn't have any A-levels. Oh, and you know what else he said to me? He said to me that I couldn't have a grant because I wasn't good enough. Well, okay, so he didn't put it in those words, but that's what he meant. Oh, and just before I left his office, you know what he said to me? He said to me, you enjoyed a different stream of education, Kenneth. There's so many wonderful things you can do with that. And I said, yeah, well, like what, sir? Well, let me think. You could be, sir, with all due respect, sir, I want to be rich like my friends from the other school. Well, there have been exceptions, maybe over the years, maybe one or two. And then he proceeded to escort me out of his office. Oh, come along, Kenneth, come along. You can be anything you really want. Make the best of it, Kenneth. Sounding flaky and insincere, like Uriah Heep, from David Copperfield. I worked hard. I worked hard from the age of 13. Worked in a laundry right through my school holidays as a laborer from 8 till 6. Sowing the seeds for the life I wanted and not settling for any less. You see, I believe, like George Bernard Shaw, that the people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they don't find them, they create them. How far is this being taught in schools today? Why is it that we want people to fit into prefabricated boxes? So the first thing I had to do was get into university. at the age of 23, with a lot of trepidation and 5 years of work experience, I called a university in the UK. My heart was pounding, my hands sweating, and the voice in my head was saying, "What do you think you're doing, boy? You're the kid who failed the 11+ exam. You don't qualify for university. Those who go to university are those who pass." I explained to the program director, "I want to better myself, sir. I want to learn." And then the moment of truth came. I didn't pass the 11+ exam, sir. Will you reject me, sir? I'll work hard, I promise. I promise, sir. Give me a chance and I'll show you what I'm capable of, sir. I just want to make my parents proud, sir. I've got the money, sir. I've been working since the age of 13. I can pay for this myself, sir. And there was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "My dear chap, 11+ exam? 11+ exam? Oh, what a load of cotswallop!" I could hear him laugh all the way from Bournemouth. Didn't know whether this was good news or whether he was making fun of me. And then he said, "My dear chap, you're welcome here. We need people like you. People who can show our younger students how to win at the game of life." If it wasn't because he was hundreds of miles away, on the other end of a phone, I would have given him a hug. And then the penny dropped. Hang on a second, what did he say? He wants me to show his younger students how to win at the game of life? Me? What does that even mean? And I finally got it. You see, winning at the game of life is about having a higher purpose. Winning at the game of life is about believing in yourself and who you were born to be, and not in all the other stuff that they try and download into your brain. Winning at the game of life is about being tenacious. It is about biting and not letting go. It is about not taking no for an answer. Winning at the game of life is about not taking rejection and failure personally, and always remembering that we are all much greater than our circumstances. Frankly, winning at the game of life is about cutting the crap and getting on with it. Let me leave you with something that I live by, if I may. When you take massive action in an area of your life which needs it, your life is never the same again. When you take massive action in an area of your life which needs it, your life is never the same again. +11 exam, or anything that smells of it, what a load of cotswallop! Love you.